G'day everyone, my name is Noah Cold and I am the author of this little beauty, A Farm Called Nellmurra. You're watching the official A Farm Called Nellmurra YouTube channel and you join us here at the shack on the back of the Kubota here, and I thought as one of the first 5 videos you'll see on the channel here uploaded Easter of 2024, I'd give you a first reading of the first couple of chapters of my book. So, here we go. Chapter 1, Nelly Gum. Ford and I are sitting under a lone mulga gum tree in the home paddock. I have a deck chair and an esky beside us, filled to the brim with snacks and drinks I had bought from town. It's a clear day where we sit, on top of the hill overlooking the farmyard and the south end in the distance. Ford and I used to spend most weekends here, where we'd sit and chill out, muck around, or just talk. Oi, Noah, do you still remember when your dad brought you up to the shed to see us for the first time? Ford asks. Do I ever? I say. Considering you keep reminding me of that story over 100 times. How'd it go again? Did I point to you first and yell, "Caw!" in a high-pitched, squeaky toddler voice, or was it an opera voice? I open the lid from a lemonade can and take a sip. Well, I can't remember that clearly, Ford says. This is usual for him. Ford did tell me the same sort of story over and over, but changed little details every time. Sounds like someone's pulling porkies, I chuckle. Now I remember, Ford says. It was a high-pitched, squeaky little toddler voice, much the same way as you're talking right now. A huge smile curves itself up on Ford's grill. Now that you mention it, do you remember the time you pissed your pants on the way home from the bus stop one afternoon because the loos at school were out of order? Oi! Since when? I say, frowning. You're the one who leaks oil, Ford, and it reeks. Since right now, mate, Ford chuckles. I sigh and open the lid of the esky. Sure you don't want one? Nah, not good for my engine, Ford says. I only drink diesel and beer, but don't tell your dad. Besides, them fizzy drinks make you bounce off the walls. Doesn't your mum call it non-nutritional food? You'd give young Gator a run for his money when you're on that stuff. But Gator's bouncy all the time. Anyway, after all, he does have the suspension to go off-road, I reply, before sitting back down in the deck chair. Ford would often mention his shed mates in our conversations and would always tie their behaviours back to mine. That reminds me. Hey, Ford, how'd you come to the farm in the first place? I ask. Now that is, interesting story. Not today, though. I'll tell you when you're 16. I'm not exposing your ears to that story yet, Ford says. I've been trying to get him to tell me that story for ages at this point, and he always told me the same thing. Mind you, there are some things that only us Utes see that nobody else does. I'm not proud of some of the things that I've done back when I was a headmaster's Ute, Ford says. I could tell he was frowning at the thought of it. Ford, in case you haven't guessed by now, is a Ute. Not just any old Ute either, but an old Ford Courier, dual cab from the mid-90s. The second eldest of the 4 Utes we have on the farm. Third eldest, actually, Ford interrupts. Landy's older than Nissen and me by about 3 years, and Nissen's older than me by about a month. Murray confirmed that the last time we had an oil change. Right, I say, in a slightly annoyed voice. Something the matter, mate? Ford asks. You look bothered. Oh, I don't know, I say. I just feel like I'm missing something when I'm at boarding school. Why? Are those other kids putting you through the ringer? Ford asks. Would have thought you'd shown them who's boss. No, it's not that. I guess I just miss being at home, on the farm, with you and Mum and Dad. I feel like I'm missing all those adventures we used to have, I say. Like the time we raced Dad and Massey, and you mean the time that the field bin decided it was going to break a wheel and stranded Massey and Murray out in the paddock, Ford says. Yeah, I remember. You were just a little excited was all. But your poor Dad, he had to walk all the way to the next paddock because someone switched my two-way off. Or the time that we broke the record for fastest time to get from the bus stop to the house, I say. 75 clicks an hour. How could I forget? Ford sighs. Don't you remember all those good old days where it was just us two going down at dawn and driving back in the afternoon? Yeah, I bet you had fun being the bus bomb, didn't you? It was a lot of fun, yes, Ford says. Had to get up real early, though. Murray told me that you needed to meet the bus by no later than 7:10, he would say. It'll be an early morning for sure. Do you think you can handle it, Ford? Yeah, I can handle that, I would reply, long as the kids are up on time. That was easier said than done. Next morning I would sit by the gate to the house and hear a commotion of constant banging and crashing, and the voice of your mum yelling, "Look at the time! You need to get out the door now!" before you and your older sister Imogen come running outside, both with a school bag in one hand and you carrying that trombone in the other, race out the gate and launch the bags into my back seat. "What's the hold up this time?" I would ask. Bloody alarm clock broke again," you would say. "You really need to wake up with the roosters then," I'd reply, as both of you climb into my cab and we'd race down the driveway where the bus always sat there waiting. "We'll leave you Cobalt kids behind one of these days the way you're going," snorts the bus driver. "Oh yeah, those were the days," Ford says. "Being bus bomb had its benefits, made me feel important, except for the fact that I had to sit at the bus stop all day till he came back," Ford went on. "Not to mention the bloody bus driver, mongrel." "The bus too? Or the driver?" "Both," Ford scoffs. "Bloody Bertie and Georgie, match made in hell." "Still, it was better than a bin run any day," I say. "Oh, shit, yeah. Don't get me started on that. The bin run's a smelly, awful job, carting away your rubbish to the tip. Who knew that you lot would create such a mess? Not to mention burning it. Talk about bad for the environment. I only volunteered to do it because Landy physically can't do it without a trailer, while Nissan and Holden downright refuse to do it," Ford exclaims with annoyance. "Oh well, at least it's my one guaranteed chance to get out of the shed to stretch my wheels, I suppose." "Yeah, well, it would either be you doing it or convincing one of the other vehicles to do it," I say. "And we both know some of them would refuse," Ford replies. That was something both of us agreed on. Apart from the 4 utes we have on the farm, we have many other vehicles: trucks, headers, loaders, tractors. They all have their own purposes, but one thing that all of them could agree on was that the bin run was Ford's job. "I mean, some of them could, in theory, take the trailer with the bins on that," Ford says, "but the trouble with that is my red trailer can only go so far with the bins before they fall off, and the sheep trailer, well, that's a matter in itself." Ford likes his small one-axle trailer and would tow it behind him when we would shift things like pumps or gensets around. Pop painted it red especially for him. "You don't seem to use that thing much nowadays, do you?" I say, being reminded of the trailer. "Well, I would, of course, but when I parked it in the bottom shed, somebody thought it a good idea to block it with loads of pallets," Ford says. "I would ask one of the loaders to shift it, but they never get round to it." I looked thoughtful as I gazed on at the view of the farm. Like how a certain school would never get round to it. "I don't know where it went all wrong with that lot," I say, being reminded of my days during primary school. "Well, you were bullied badly by some stupid case-huggers from Sterling Creek, weren't you?" Ford asks. "It was a heap more complicated than that, Ford. Even so, I am always reminded of that place when I go to school in the city. I'm often asked why I didn't spend the rest of high school back here. They just don't understand what it's like out here, Ford," I'd say. "It's a hell of a different place, the city." "You make many friends down there?" Ford asks. "Not really," I say. "I mean, well, okay, everyone knows my name, but they don't know me. And every time I try to tell them about home, they either reckon Nellmurra is a town, that it's in another country, or they think that it's not real." "Of course we're real," Ford exclaims. "Don't they know where their food comes from?" "Seems not," I say. "Right, I see," Ford says, his eyes narrowing. "Well, at least you have a ute like me to keep you company out here then, eh?" "Suppose you're right," I say. "At least I've got you, Mum, Dad, Imogen, Chloe, and everyone else that happens to live here to keep me company." "Well, we're more than just a farm at Nellmurra, we're a whole community," I interrupt. Yes, I know. "Well, it's Dad that looks after you lot. I'm just the one that helps him. Until, of course, he gave me the job of looking after you, Ford." "Well, to be completely honest," Ford starts, "you are the only one who saw me as more than just a ute. And you're doing the best that a 13-year-old can do to maintain me. I mean, look at me. I've not had a coat of red paint like this for that long." He looks back at his shiny paintwork. "Before you started driving me, I felt neglected. Landy and Holden had taken better care of me because they're Murray's 2 favourite utes, while Nissan and I on the other fender, well, we're just here to work and work only," Ford explains. Then an idea hits him. "Actually, if telling people about home won't work, why don't you show them? You've got one of them fancy computer watching Macaulay's for school, don't you?" "You mean like a video?" "Nah, I mean you could write down stories from the farm," Ford explains. I don't have pens or paper, Ford, and even then, I'm not as good a storyteller, I say. I call that bullshit, mate, Ford exclaims. You're the one who gave us names, remember? I remember when you were just a little kid running around and telling us all those crazy stories you'd made up out of the blue with those little wooden train toys you had. Can't you type it up on that school computer, whatchamacallit, in my cab? All right, I suppose I can, I say, opening the door to the back seat and grabbing out my laptop. Even then, I don't know where to start. Well, write what you know, Ford says. Perhaps start off with something recent, like the fence incident. No, Ford, I say. Oh, come on, it's only the time that your sister got jealous that you got to drive me first and convinced you to let her drive and ploughed me through Uncle's fence. So that's why Imogen couldn't turn your wheel, I say. Yeah, course. Got to teach you somehow. That reminds me. How's that elbow of yours doing? You've been wearing that blue splint for months now, Ford says, referring to the splint on my arm, still holding my elbow in place. Doing okay, I say. Still hurts a bit when I move it. Wait, that's it. I could write about my accident. Atta boy, Ford chuckles. That's a good tale, that one. Speaking of, I say, I don't think I've ever asked this, but how'd you react to my accident, Ford? I feel selfish for putting the spotlight on me all the time. Pfft. I took it well myself. Thought nothing of it, Ford says. He didn't sound so truthful. I raise a brow. Oh, all right, I didn't take it as well as I wish I could have, Ford admits at last. I'll tell you, but you'll need to correct me on some things, Noah. Because your storytelling is highly exaggerated, I say. But you've got to admit, it is funny, Ford says. I shall call this story The Terrible Revenge of the Evil, No Good, Awful Feathered Birds That Didn't Get Their Breakfast. Noah breaks his arm for short. I burst out laughing at this as Ford begins. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the very first chapter of A Farm Called Nellmurra. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more from this, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. Help this channel grow. And if you want to see the real life inspiration to A Farm Called Nellmurra, you can go to my main channel, TJM Farming, link down below in the description. Until next time, I've been Noah, you've been my audience, and we'll see you next time.